Shemoth, Exodus, Chapter 1. And these are the names of the children of Israel, who came to Mitzrayim of Yaakov, each one with his household: Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all those who were descendants of Yaakov were 70 beings, as Yosef was already in Mitzrayim. And Yosef died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased very much, multiplied and became very strong, and the land was filled with them. Then a new sovereign arose over Mitzrayim, who did not know Yosef. And he said to his people, See, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase, and it shall be when fighting befalls us, that they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the land. So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. And the Mitzrayites made the children of Israel serve of harshness, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all kinds of work in the field. All the work which they made them do was with harshness. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you deliver the Hebrew women, and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death, but if it is a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim, and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mitzrayim called for the midwives, and said to them, Why have you done this, and kept the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not like the Mitzrayim women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. And the Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, Throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter. 2. And a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him for 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker for him, and coated it with tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance, to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her young women were walking by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her female servant to get it, and opened it and saw the child, and see, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the children of the Hebrews. And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you? And the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. The Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child away and nurse him for me, then I shall pay your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe, saying, Because I have drawn him out of the water. And in those days it came to be, when Moshe was grown, that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw a Mitzrayim striking a Hebrew, one of his brothers. So he turned this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he struck the Mitzrayim and hid him in the sand. Then he went out the second day, and saw 2 Hebrew men fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, Why do you strike your neighbor? And he said, Who made you a head and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Mitzrayim? And Moshe feared, and said, Truly, the matter is known. And Pharaoh heard of this matter, and he sought to kill Moshe. But Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. And the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled their troughs with water to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Moshe stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. And they came to Reuel, their father, and said, How is it that you have come so soon today? And they said, A Mitzrayim rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. And he said to his daughters, And where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread. And Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moshe. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have become a sojourner in a foreign land. And it came to be after these many days that the sovereign of Mitzrayim died. And the children of Israel groaned because of the slavery, and they cried out. And their cry came up to Elohim because of the slavery. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzchak, and with Yaakov. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. 3. And Moshe was shepherding the flock of Yithro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the wilderness, and came to Korev, the mountain of Elohim. And the messenger of Yahuwah appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked and saw the bush burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, Let me turn aside now, and see this great sight, while the bush does not burn. And Yahuwah saw that he turned aside to see, and Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush, and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not come near here. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is set apart ground. And he said, I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov. And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahuwah said, I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their cry because of their slave drivers, for I know their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Mitzrites, and to bring them up from that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Kittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Kivites, and the Jebusites. And now, see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Mitzrites oppress them. And now, come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim. And Moshe said to Elohim, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim? And he said, Because I am with you. And this is to you the sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Mitzrayim, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain. And Moshe said to Elohim, See, when I come to the children of Israel, and say to them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And Elohim said to Moshe, I am that which I am. And he said, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And Elohim said further to Moshe, Thus you are to say to the children of Israel, Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance to all generations. Go, and you shall gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Yitzchak, and of Yaakov, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you, and seen what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I say, I am bringing you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of the Canaanite, and the Kittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Kivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim, and you shall say to him, Yahuwah Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. And now, please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter the Yahuwah Elohim. But I know that the sovereign of Mitzrayim is not going to let you go, not even by a strong hand. And I shall stretch out my hand and strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I shall do in its midst. And after that he shall let you go. And I shall give this people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites, and it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask from her neighbor and from the stranger in her house objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and shall plunder the Mitzrites. 4. And Moshe answered and said, And if they do not believe me nor listen to my voice, and say, Yahuwah has not appeared to you. And Yahuwah said to him, What is that? In your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moshe fled from it. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, Reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand. So that they believe that Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov has appeared to you. And Yahuwah said to him again, Now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous, like snow. And he said, Put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again, and drew it out of his bosom, and see, it was restored like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on the dry land. And the water which you take from the river shall become blood on the dry land. And Moshe said to Yahuwah, O Yahuwah, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And Yahuwah said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, Yahuwah? And now, go, and I shall be with your mouth, and teach you what to say. But he said, O Yahuwah, please send by the hand of him whom you would send. And the displeasure of Yahuwah burned against Moshe. And he said, Is not Aharon the Levite your brother? I know that he speaks well. And see, he is also coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put the words in his mouth. And I am with your mouth, and with his mouth, and I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people, and it shall be that he shall be a mouth for you, and you shall be an Elohim for him. And take this rod in your hand, with which you shall do the signs. Then Moshe went and returned to Yethro his father-in-law, and said to him, Please let me go and return to my brothers, who are in Mitzrayim, to see whether they are still alive. And Yethro said to Moshe, Go in peace. And Yahuwah said to Moshe in Midian, Go, return to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who sought your life. So Moshe took his wife and his sons, and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, As you go back to Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart, so that he does not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus said Yahuwah, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, Let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. And it came to be, in the lodging place, that Yahuwah met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone, and cut off the foreskin of her son, and threw it at his feet, and said, You are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me. So he let him go. Then she said, You are a bridegroom of blood, because of the circumcision. And Yahuwah said to Aharon, Go to meet Moshe in the wilderness. And he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim, and kissed him. Moshe then told Aharon all the words of Yahuwah, who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe went with Aharon, and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aharon spoke all the words which Yahuwah had spoken to Moshe. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people, and the people believed. And they heard that Yahuwah had visited the children of Israel, and that he looked on their affliction, and they bowed their heads and did obeisance. 5. And afterwards Moshe and Aharon went in and said to Pharaoh, Thus said Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel, Let my people go, so that they celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is Yahuwah, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know Yahuwah, nor am I going to let Israel go. And they said, The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter to Yahuwah our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. But the sovereign of Mitzrayim said to them, Moshe and Aharon, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, See, the people of the land are many now, and you make them cease from their burdens. And the same day Pharaoh commanded the slave drivers of the people and their foremen, saying, You are no longer to give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And lay on them the required amount of bricks which they made before. Do not diminish it, for they are idle. That is why they cried out, saying, Let us go and slaughter to our Elohim. Let more work be laid on the men, so that they labor in it, and not pay attention to the words of falsehood. And the slave drivers of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, Thus said Pharaoh, I do not give you straw. Go, take straw for yourselves wherever you find it, for your work shall not be diminished. And the people were scattered in all the land of Mitzrayim, to gather stubble for straw. And the slave drivers were hurrying them on, saying, Fulfill your actions, your daily matters, as when there was straw. Also the foremen of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over them, were struck and were asked, "Why have you not fulfilled your law in making bricks both yesterday and today as before?" And the foreman of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, "Why do you treat your servants this way? There is no straw given to your servants, and they say to us, 'Make bricks.' And see, your servants are struck, but your own people are at fault." But he said, "You are idle, you are idle. That is why you say, 'Let us go and slaughter to Yahuwah.' So now go, work. And straw is not given to you, but deliver the amount of bricks." And the foreman of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it was said, "You are not to diminish your daily amount of bricks." And they came out from Pharaoh. When they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moshe and Aharon, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, "Let Yahuwah look on you and judge, because you have made us loathsome in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to give a sword in their hand to kill us." And Moshe returned to Yahuwah and said, "Yahuwah, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you send me? For ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all."